What up, ladies and gents? This is George Bean. Now, to admit, I'm making this video not only to review today's movie, but mostly I want to bring more attention to this movie, and hopefully to give you, ladies and gentlemen, a reason to watch it if you still haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Hopefully. Now, here's what it is. First things first, we all know who David Fincher is. With his having started off directing the 1992 film Alien 3, which he had since then disowned, having been through the severest difficulties in the film. But then he directed the 1995 detective classic 7, which boosted his career, and over the next 2 decades has become a well-known name with several movies such as Fight Club, The Social Network, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and another favorite of mine, Gone Girl, all of which were great. But enough about those movies. I'd like to talk about one particular Fincher film, which I believe did a bit averagely during its theatrical release in 2007, but has since then gained an ever-growing cult following among Fincher fans. That movie I'm talking about is the 2007 mystery thriller Zodiac, which was based on the 1986 true crime book of the same name by Robert Graysmith, which in turn was based on one of Northern California's most well-known manhunts for a notorious serial killer calling himself the Zodiac, who terrorized the San Francisco Bay Area during the late 1960s and early 1970s, leaving several victims in his wake and taunting the police with cryptic letters and ciphers mailed to the newspapers, especially the San Francisco Chronicle. And even to this day, the Zodiac Killer remains anonymous and uncaptured, and has become one of California's most notorious unsolved cases. This film focuses on this case, and how those involved in the case slowly but surely becomes obsessed with wanting to uncover the killer's true identity. Now for the cast, we start off with Jake Gyllenhaal as Robert Graysmith, who worked at the Chronicle as a political cartoonist when the Zodiac was terrorizing the Bay Area, and Graysmith begins his own investigation into the case, which would span the next 2 decades, culminating with the publishing of his Zodiac book in 1986. As always, Gyllenhaal is great, but in the latter half, he honestly felt a little too young for a man who is supposedly to be aging in almost a decade. But yeah, a good Gyllenhaal performance. Not great, but it does get the job well done. Next up is Mark Ruffalo as San Francisco PD Inspector David Tashi, who had been investigating the Zodiac case almost from the start, since having been assigned after the murder of Zodiac's 5th confirmed victim, taxi driver Paul Stine. Of course, you may recognize Ruffalo from the recent Marvel movies, playing as Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, particularly in the first 2 Avengers movies, and will appear in Thor 3 Ragnarok this November. You know, it's actually quite funny, but I think he'd be a pitch-perfect choice to play Columbo if they'd ever even think about making a Columbo movie in the future. Ruffalo does look a little bit like Peter Falk. And third on the list, we have Robert Downey Jr. as Paul Avery, a journalist for the Chronicle who had been writing articles about the case almost from the beginning. After writing an article taunting the Zodiac, the latter sent a threatening letter to Avery, driving him to walk around with a gun, but in the end becomes involved with drugs and alcohol. Downey is great, as always, but what's great about this is that this movie was just a year before he would go on to play superhero Iron Man in the Marvel film of the same name, which, little did we know at the time, would kickstart what has now become the massively successful Marvel Cinematic Universe we now know today. One funny little bit in this movie is when Ruffalo and Downey end up arguing at each other over the Zodiac case, and for For a moment, I almost expected Ruffalo to suddenly turn green when he becomes angry, and then Downey would have busted out his Iron Man Hulkbuster to stop him. Cute joke. And, of course, we have, not to go into further detail, we have, like, say, Brian Cox in it, who you may recognize as Colonel Stryker in X-Men 2, and many other movies. And Anthony Edwards is in this movie. He was in the original 1980s comedy Revenge of the Nerds, and my, has he grown. There's this one funny bit I love when they're trying to investigate leads. Anthony Edwards plays a fellow inspector and speaks to this woman, talking about the Zodiac having cut off any of the victim's hands. Zodiac didn't cut off any of the victim's hands. And the woman's like, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yes, sir." He called her sir, too. And, you may recognize John Carroll Lynch in the American Horror Story as that twisted clown. He plays prime suspect Arthur Lee Allen, which I'll talk about later. But anyway, for the music was composed by David Shire. The decision to hire Shire was made after Fincher used music from 2 films Shire had previously composed, those being The Conversation and All the President's Men, for his film's temp track. Fincher was eager to work with Shire, as All the President's Men was one of his favorite films and one of the primary cinematic influences on Zodiac, which is good. The music is really good at some moments. Rarely used here and there, but it's good. Just to say, Zodiac is a really great film by David Fincher. Probably an underrated one, mostly. It seemed to have faded away from the public's attention in the past 10 years. I guess it's because people were expecting it to be more along the lines of Seven or Saw, according to what Fincher says. But what's great about Fincher is that he doesn't repeat himself very often. His movies always have his style, but each have its own difference from each other. So don't expect another head-in-the-box scene in this movie. Zodiac and Seven are both serial killer films, but they are very different from each other. Seven was about the dark side of humanity, while Zodiac was a true story with themes of obsession. You could say Zodiac is similar to All the President's Men or JFK, as they focus on a character who investigates a case, which ends up overwhelming his life, and they're more or less talky movies. Yeah, to put it bluntly, Zodiac can simply be pitched as the serial killer version of All the President's Men. In fact, again, Fincher himself said that he had looked to All the President's Men as a primary influence to this film. You can obviously tell in the scene set in the Chronicle office building. They're shot similarly to the Washington Post office building scenes shot in President's Men. What makes this movie different from other serial killer films is that the serial murders only happen within the first 30 minutes of the film. Thus, afterwards, the rest of the film focuses on the investigative process to search for the killer. Now, given that this is based on a true story, we already know how it is going to end, i.e. the Zodiac Killer to this day remains unidentified and the entire case unsolved. But what is really intriguing is experiencing the investigations that ensued in those several years, and how it affected the lives of the people involved in the case, both literally and metaphorically. Plus, you can also have your own opinion as to whom you suspect was the Zodiac Killer. In fact, my suspect would also be Arthur Lee Allen, played by John Carroll Lynch in this film. I mean, looking at the evidence, he had to have been the Zodiac. So he must have had some form of involvement in it. Read the book and watch the movie, and look at the Zodiac websites. There's no way all that circumstantial evidence could build up on this one guy. But I also believe he may have had an accomplice, which could explain the lack of his DNA on the envelopes, along with the handwriting and saliva. Even to this day, Arthur Lee Allen is still considered a prime suspect by the police in Napa County, Solano County, and the city of Vallejo. And one other suspect I have is a man named Lawrence K., aka Kane, who is said to have been traced to any and all places where the Zodiac attacks occurred. Seriously, check out this video on YouTube, a channel called BuzzFeed Unsolved about the Zodiac case. They present the pros and cons of the evidence involving Arthur Lee Allen and Lawrence K. in good detail. I'll leave you a link to that video in the content section below the video, so please, check it out. But getting back to the movie, Zodiac is a well-crafted mystery thriller and a work of art that presents the Zodiac case without making it feel boring or dragged out. I think it's really good. Every minute of its 157-minute runtime is not wasted in it. Every minute of it is used perfectly. I mean, seriously, this is a good movie. An underrated one at its best. So overall, I would give Zodiac at least a rating of 8 stars out of 10, because it's a really good and possibly underappreciated David Fincher film that is worth a second look to. Quite possibly one of his very best. So I'd recommend all of you ladies and gentlemen to check out this movie. It's worth it. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gents, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I deeply appreciate the generosity and enthusiasm you have shown me, and the comments you gave for my Screen 2 video. You had gave me enough confidence to do this video. And as always, until then, see y'all next time. Peace!